and because they're going to be units where you're going to be like, I don't like this unit. It's really, statistics, you're going to be like, some of you are going to pull your hair out. Don't do it. You'll be fine. But, you know, I'm encouraging you to do well on this one. All right. So back to 41 here in the notes. I think I'm just going to highlight, we talked about the fact that sometimes you're going to have to figure out the fuel economy using this formula. It's on your formula sheet. It's on maybe your study sheet. That's up to you. And that's the answer we got. So you're saying that this car is using 9.56 liters for every 100 kilometers. Just pay attention. I know it's Friday and you're like falling asleep, right? Just try to pay attention. It's the last thing regarding math in this unit. Insurance, I'll talk about it on Monday. Okay? There's no math for insurance. Zero. It's all about knowing how insurance works. So here we go. I use that fuel economy and they gave me the distance that this car traveled, right? And I put the distance with the kilometers on the other side, cross multiply divide, to figure out how many liters I would need for this trip. Alternatively, you can use the fuel economy to figure out on a full tank of 70 liters, how far could you drive, right? So it works both ways. You can find how many liters you need for a distance, or you can find out the distance you drive with a certain amount of liters, okay? It works both ways. Example 2, this had a little bit of extra work necessary. You had to subtract the end and the start reading of your odometer to figure out how many kilometers you had actually driven. And that's the fuel economy we got. Fuel cost, you always take your liters times the price of fuel. So sometimes you need to figure out how many liters you drive, and that's what's coming up next. Okay, go to example 3 here. We had an example where we're given the fuel economy. We were given how far of a trip that was driven, and it just went straight into calculate the cost of fuel for this trip. You can't do anything until you figure out the liters that you've used. So pay close attention. We took our fuel economy, right? That's what you start with, and you go equals. Figure out how many liters, because liters are on top, right? You will need for this trip. Cross multiply and divide. We got this many liters. We do not round, okay? I will say this, use 4 decimals. You have to add this to your notes. If needed, use 4 decimals here. If this doesn't stop on your calculator, don't round just yet, okay? And then we took this and brought it over, and then we were able to calculate our cost. Once you find this, it's just take that and multiply it by the price per liter. And we got 55.77. Can I say this? Never add taxes to fuel, okay? What you see on the pump is, I actually had a student, just this last semester, quite a few students adding taxes to that. They would go times 1.12 because they're so used to taxing, right? Don't, okay? This is, I will make a note at the beginning of this on page 40. Once you're done copying this, I think most of you have. Let's go back here and just say, don't add taxes to the fuel price, okay? Don't, this is on 40, don't add taxes to fuel cost, okay? And if you're like me, right, you're into highlighting these days. Some of you are completely buying into it. That's awesome. Yeah. When I was in high school, you couldn't even pay me to use a highlighter. I'd just be like, no, too much work. But I wish I would. So don't add taxes to fuel costs, because if you flip through this, you're like, okay, that stands out, right? That stands out. Let's say this is like preparing for the exam. You look at that, it's like, oh yeah, remember that, no taxes to fuel. Because you would lose a full mark if you did that. That's why I'm saying that. Okay, I think you got the point there. Let me go back. Let's do example 4 before we move on. Example 4 is a Toyota, Honda, right? The fuel economy is 9.1 liters per 100 kilometers. We're going to write that as a fraction in a bit. If you use 32 liters for a trip, what is the distance you did, like that you traveled? What's the distance you could travel on that many liters? And here it is. Take that fuel economy and write it like this. Write it as a fraction. And then just figure out. They're giving me liters, so I'm going to put that. It's very important that you put it in the right place. Okay? If I misbehave at home, my wife puts me in the right place, right? I go into the basement or the doghouse. All right. So times divide, right? X is equal to 32 times 100 divided by 9.1. Don't do the, very important, listen carefully here. And I think it happens because I do this. You cannot set it up and just put next to it the answer here. That's not correct. Never do that on your initial setup. Okay? Do your setup, get a full mark for it, then get another mark for showing the work and getting your final answer. 32 times 100. Again, I'm just mentioning it. I think most of you, I don't have an issue with that. You haven't been doing that, but just in case, it's 65, right? And we are figuring out the distance, so it's kilometers that we're after. So on a 32 liter fill, this is the approximate distance you could travel. Okay. All right, so these examples are basically, this is all you need to know how to do fuel economy. Everything is on this page. Okay. I should have had a few more examples of these, but we're just going to go with it. One last thing that I need to talk about today, and then I'll let you work and I'll hand out the quizzes. Hand back the quizzes. Go to the next page here, 42. There's a list of operating costs. You need to have, I would say, 3 at least. If not, if you memorize them, good. If you need to write them down, then you need to write them down. Okay? And so basically, there are costs that are involved in operating the vehicle. You just can't get away, right? Like windshield washer fluid, you need to replace that. Spring is coming, right? If you don't have windshield washer fluid, you're going to be in trouble. That's part of operating a vehicle. You're going to need to replace the tires at one point, right? Tires wear out, you need to replace them. That's operating costs. Here are some examples, like getting your brakes inspected or replaced. That's part of operating a vehicle. It doesn't happen on a regular basis, but it is considered an operating cost. Your oil change should be done I would say every 3 months. Don't go by kilometers, just go by every 3 months, change your oil. I can't tell you how much easier it is for your engine to start in the winter. If you have fresh oil, because the oil gets very hot. And so hot, cold, it starts to lose its, is it viscosity? Yeah, viscosity. It's harder for the engine to turn. So if you have fresh oil in there, um, you're not going to have as many issues. You need to replace the oil filter every time you make an oil change, by the way. If you do it yourself, you need to change them at the same time. I change my own oil. It doesn't take much. YouTube it. It saves you money. Get the oil when it's on sale at Canadian Tire, 40% off. Get a good brand, and away you go, right? Um, wheel alignment. That's only if you make repairs on your car. If you ever do anything with a front end, you need to get it aligned again because it needs to be perfect. Even if it's off by a little bit, your tires are going to wear out unevenly. Okay, so you need to make sure you do that. You know what tire rotation is? Anybody? It doesn't mean to spin them. It means to do this. Watch. If let's say these are the 4 tires of your car. See a mechanic if you don't want to do this yourself, but if this is the rear and this is the front, every year you should be you should take the front one off and put it in the back and vice versa, right? You swap them. That is tire rotation. And some will say that you should also do this, crisscross them. But some tires are only made to spin one way. Like they have a certain pattern, so you can't do that. But this is the minimum you can do. Take the front ones, put them in the back. Take the back ones, put them in the front. If you have a front wheel drive, your front tires are spinning a lot in the winter. You're wearing them out. So if you swap them every year, you're gonna have an even wear. So you don't need to like replace the front tires before the rear tires, right? Because you're rotating them on a regular basis. It costs nothing. Like if you do it yourself, it's $0. All you have to do is take it off, put it right. It's work, but it's not bad. Okay. I will talk about, if I have time, I'll talk about the other ones. This is a big one. A lot of people don't think of air filter. Let's use Google for this. Go ahead. So your engine has an air filter. Um, Here is a good one. So it depends. The location always changes. Let's see if I click on it, if it's going to be a bigger, yeah. So this is the air that goes into your engine, right? Your engine mixes fuel and air, right, in the combustion chamber in the cylinders. And this filter needs to be replaced every year minimum. I would say every 6 months. But if that filter is clogged and it gets pretty dirty in the spring, summer, right, with all the dust, you need to replace that because your fuel consumption is going to be affected if that's dirty because the air can't flow freely, right? So you need to make sure you replace that. Um, there's also a cabin filter. Your car, the newer cars, have cabin filters inside. It's usually, if you open the glove the glove box, it might be behind there. They're cheap. They're like $10, $15. Sorry, maybe more. I'm not sure. It depends on the type of car. If you have a BMW, it's probably going to be more. But that actually traps, like filters the air coming into the car. So you need to replace that on a regular basis as well. If you take it to like Great Canadian Oil Change or one of those Mr. Lube, they will ask you to do that. So just say yes, unless you want to do it yourself to save some money. But that needs to be, that's the air cabin filter, right? So the cabin air filter, sorry, what did I say? Cabin air. So it's usually behind the glove compartment, and then you have fresh air in the car. Okay. All right. Um, this is what I want you to do now. There's an assignment for this particular section, but it's not as good as the question that I'm about to assign. So get your workbook, and there's a mock quiz, an old quiz that I put in there on page 10. On page 10, at the bottom of page 10, would you be able to answer this question? And notice that it says, how much does Bertha spend on fuel each year? So you need to figure out how much she would have to pay for a month first, and then figure out the year. Okay? And I will give you the answers in a bit. And as you're doing this, I'm going to give you the quizzes. Month and year. I'm going to quickly go over it, if you don't mind. The fuel economy is given, right? And I'm told that I'm driving 1,500 kilometers per month. So I'm going to figure out how many liters do I need, right, to travel this much in a month. It's quite a bit, actually. So 1,500 times 13.5 divided by 100. 202 something, right? 2025 in liters. So what you want to do is maybe multiply this by 12, right? If you multiply in a year, just go 202.5 liters times 12. That's 2,430 liters per year, right? I'm multiplying by 12 because of 12 months, obviously. And then once you figured this out, this is very important. Now you can do your cost, right? So 2,430 liters times 1.25. I wish, right? We all wish that that's the gas price, but it's not. That's $3,037.50 a year on fuel. So if you think about it, if gas goes up by 10 cents, right? In this particular case, it'd be like $300 more a year, right? If you think about it in a yearly amount, it's actually quite a bit of money. That's it.